Hey there, it's Jenny with Ugly Glass and Company, and today we're going to take some trash and turn it into treasure. Now, the top of this table had some gouges in it, and I was going to have to use some wood filler and sand it. So I just decided to add a nice texture to the whole top. So I grabbed my salt wash and I grabbed the color of paint I was going to use, and I then start to smear it all over the table. But first I make sure that I put a big glob on top of those gouges that I was talking about, because you want to make sure that they are covered. So you smear the salt wash paint mixture all over your tabletop, and you want a icing like consistency, you want it nice and thick so you can create a nice texture. If you're familiar with stenciling, you're going to use a similar motion of an up and down with your paintbrush. And that's going to give you these raised edges. And I'm just making sure that my fabric goes with my paint, and for some reason I decided I wanted a lighter shade. So I got the new pink out from Cottage Colors, and I put that on top of the DIY paint and salt wash mixture. And my thought was, when I sand this, it will give me the darker colors back. And here it is. I'm sanding it with a sanding block, and you see that the top coat that I put on will come off of the raised edges because I'm taking those off and I'm kind of flattening them out. Like there will still be a texture, but it'll be this cool flat texture. And I added a clear coat, and the clear coat deepens the color of the original DIY paint. Took a little break and went down by the river. Just chill out for a little bit. Here's a pro tip. Before you start messing with the top of your table, always paint the underneath. I usually end up forgetting and screwing up my tabletop because I'll flip it over and do it after the fact. So do it first. My chairs I painted with the new cottage color, and I thought it felt too new. And I'm going to sand these back anyway, but I wanted to add a little bit more grunge to them. So I got out the Dark and Decrepit by DIY paint and smeared it all over these chairs. Dark and Decrepit can be used straight out of the jar, or you can also mist it with some water if you don't want it so dark. A little bit does go a long way, but it also dries really quickly, so you want to work pretty fast and wipe back any excess that you have quickly. And the Dark and Decrepit will settle down into the crevices of your piece as well as the brush strokes. And depending on which paint you use, I used the Cottage Color. I did not need a clear coat before I did this, but if you use the DIY paint clay-based paints, you do need a clear coat before you use the Dark and Decrepit, or you will end up with a muddy mess. After the Dark and Decrepit dries, I like to take it down to my sander, and I use a Surf Pro pad, which is a spongy sandpaper, and it just helps me get down into the grooves a little bit better. I want my Dark and Decrepit to stay in the grooves, but I wanted to bring it off of some of the raised surfaces, and that's why I chose to do it this way. To me, it gives it a more old world feeling, and it's been worn over generations and maybe has a couple layers of paint. I think it looks cool. This is the fabric that I found. I got it for like $3.50. It was only a yard at an estate sale. It's a Waverly fabric from like 2003, so it's over 20 years old, so it's technically vintage, right? Even though 20 years ago just seems like 2 years ago in my world. When you're just doing the pad of the chair, it's super simple. You're just stapling the fabric onto the backer board, and you want to get the straight shots first and save the corners for last. So you want to make sure that you trim off any excess fabric, or it's harder to do. Now I'm sure at some point you were like, that does not look like trash. And you're right, it doesn't. But someone sat it at the curb with the trash cans. Someone else picked it up, and I bought it off of that person. I don't drive around looking for freebies. I don't have time for that. But I will buy it from someone else that does. I had to trim some of the excess fabric from under the seat cushion. This one had already been recovered a few times, and I just went right over all of that, so I didn't have to pull it off. If there's something wrong with the fabric that's going to show through your new fabric, you'll want to remove all that. And we're just going to put the cushions back on. I mean, they are super easy. You just screw them back down. Make sure if you have to replace the screws, that you're not using something that's going to poke through when you sit down. So don't use something too long, but you'll want to make sure that you go through the wood. And these chairs are old. They are antiques. They have seen better days. But I was able to glue them and make them sturdy again. So I'm calling this like a little tea set. What do you think? Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you go subscribe to my channel and shoot me a comment on what you think and what you'd like to see me do next.